Hello everyone, welcome to week 3. I'm Heather Brandon, your course instructor, and wanted to start by talking you through a few upcoming assignments. There are some major ones headed your way, but before we get into the newer things, here's a quick explanation of your readings for this week. There are 4 different things. First, there is an article on anecdotal records and what makes a quality anecdotal record. This I found to be very helpful and have shared with many teachers at my school. Second, you are reading the Introduction to Classroom-Based Assessment. That is what Lipson and Wixon 4th edition is calling it, but 5th edition is calling it Formative Diagnostic Assessment. So on the checklist this week, I have the page numbers that correspond to the various editions. You are also reading the Introduction to Structured Informal Assessment, which is called Structured Inventories in the 5th edition, and those are the different page numbers. That's only a couple of pages. I really just want you to read about what they are and when you use them so you can kind of have a better understanding of the difference between the two. Both the structured informal and the classroom-based or formative assessments are informal assessments. And then lastly, since this is a pretty light week for reading and a light week for assignments in general, I'm highly recommending that you start to read Lipson and Wixon chapter 4. It is the same chapter for both editions and it is on Getting Started. It's on the syllabus for next week, but it would be very helpful to have this information now as you begin to start thinking about working with your student. So a quick 9-page article, a couple of pages from Lipson and Wixon, and then I would definitely start reading Lipson and Wixon chapter 4 so you have that done for next week when you have many more assignments to do. The participation activity this week is one more discussion forum. You are getting very skilled at completing these, and we will take a break from doing them and switch over to our assessment plans and reflections. But I would like for you to think about the differences between the two types of informal assessment, the classroom-based and the structured. What are the benefits of informal assessment, and how does this measure of assessment compared to formal assessments being our topic from last week. So a little bit of exploration of the different kinds of informal assessment and thinking about the benefits of those and how they compare to the formal. Assignments due this week. It is a pretty light week, really just doing the readings, the participation activity. Also, making sure that fieldwork requirement is set by the 14th so that you can start working with your student, and then finding a student. So the only 2 things to submit to me would be the discussion forum and then the fieldwork requirement. All right, I wanted to point out a helpful guide that I have put on Titanium. It is at the very top block with the syllabus and the rubrics and all of that stuff. It is the Practicum Assessment Guide, and what I have done is I've broken down your whole installment of sessions into each of the 5 sessions, and I've outlined what the domain is going to be that you're working on. So session 1 is the affective domain. These are the required assessments. It indicates when you need to complete a video, and then here are some optional assessments you could try out or give. Same thing with session 2, that's going to be focused on early literacy, which includes phonology, concepts of print, and oral language. These are the required assessments, and then these are some optional ones you could give. Now you'll notice each week we are giving a structured assessment, maybe even 2 structured assessments, and then an informal assessment. And a lot of times I will give you your choice of informal assessment, which will mean you will need to come up with some sort of authentic performance-based task in that area. So check out the guide. It will help you plan for upcoming sessions and see what assessments you are going to be required to give and to submit artifacts for. Now, I would like to talk about one of the new assignments that will be starting week 4, and that is the weekly assessment artifacts, the plan for your assessment session, and then the reflection. So, this is a big assignment, and we are doing 10 of them this semester, 5 with student 1 and 5 with student 2. There are actually 3 parts to this assignment. First are the artifacts. So all you need to do is scan or take photos of all of the assessments that you gave in that session, and then you will upload those to the assignment link to submit them on Titanium. Next, you will need to make a plan, almost like a lesson plan that structures your session and indicates what assessments you are giving and how you are going to administer them. And I'll show you a template in a minute. And I also have a rubric up on Titanium now. And then the last piece is the actual reflection, where you are going to go back. The plan you're going to make before your session, and then the reflection you complete after your session. And you're going to go back and you're going to type up the quantitative and qualitative data, and then also provide your reflection on the strengths and limitations of the assessment. So there's a lot rolled in to this assignment. First, you have the actual artifacts of the assessments given. Then you have the lesson plan you use to structure your session, and then going back to the plan and filling in the information, data collected, and how you interpret that data. So these will be due each week by Saturday at midnight, which allows me to grade them over the weekend and get the feedback to you. You can submit it up to a week late, but that will be a full grade reduction. These will be submitted on Titanium each week, and then samples and rubrics are available now on Titanium. So let's take a look at the rubric and sample. So here is the rubric. It is available on Titanium. You can see that the total points are 30 for each of these, and that these, all 10 of them, make up 25% of your total grade. So at first you have the assessment artifacts, which are worth 10 points. The two things I'm looking at for those are that you have multiple sources of assessment data. So you've given the required assessments, but you're also thinking critically and designing your own assessments that support that domain. And then second, your administration of those assessments. Are you following the protocol? Are you scoring them accurately? Are you coding them accurately? For example, when you give the QRI word list, you need to use a letter C if they got it correct instead of a check mark, and that is directly in the protocol for that, because check marks can often be misinterpreted. So here's where I'm going to pay attention to: are you following the standardization measures for the assessment, administration, and scoring? Next piece, we have the plan and reflection, and I'm looking at 4 things for the actual plan and reflection: your plan itself and how you're considering the learner in your plan, the reporting of the results, the reflection on the results, and then since this is a graduate course, we have to have grading on grammar, mechanics, usage, all of that good stuff. So let's go back up here. So for a 5, for your plan, you need to make sure you have a cohesive session plan with the learner in mind. You include some type of an effective warm-up activity to get them engaged, to hook them in. You have several different types of assessment, and then a closing activity or conclusion to your session. Also, when you determine how you're going to administer the assessments, thinking about how much time you're going to need, how you're actually going to administer the assessment. Do you have sample items? Do you need to break up the assessment and provide a break in between, or maybe do some sort of literacy activity in between, that kind of thing. Next, looking at your ability to report out the results using quantitative data, so scores, and qualitative findings, more of those anecdotal records, right? Next, looking at your analysis of that data to give some interpretations and then also theories for intervention. Lastly, determining the limitations of the assessment results and any threats to validity and reliability that might be present. So that is the rubric for the weekly assessment artifacts, plan, and reflection, something I like to call the WAPR. Now let's take a look at the template for the WAPR. I am working on a sample for you to have as well, so you can see the expectation for this assignment, but here is the template. Basically over here we have those 4 pieces of the warm-up, the formal assessment, the informal assessment, and the closing activity. And then over here you're going to have the actual plan of what you're doing, the data you've collected, and then your interpretation of the data. So making sure that here you really visualize and describe how you are going to administer the assessment so that you have a plan, thinking through that. Over here is where you would report the quantitative data and the qualitative data. They won't always have both. Some may have just qualitative data and not any quantitative data. And then over here, you're giving the interpretation of the data. So what are conclusions you can draw? What are the child's strengths and needs? How valid and reliable are the results? And what were limitations of the assessments given? So that is the rubric and the template, and I will also provide a sample. If you have any questions, definitely let me know, but I always provide a lot of feedback so that you have that to improve your performance on these over the course of the semester. All right, let's talk about the videos quickly. So these are only due on designated weeks. There are 6 total. You do not need to video every session. For example, when you work on spelling and writing, I don't really need to see evidence of you giving a spelling test or a writing prompt, that sort of thing. But for some of these other more tricky assessments in the core and especially the QRI, we want to make sure you are proficient in doing those, and we also are required for our accreditation to do so many sessions with students, and we need this documentation as well. There are 6 videos total that you will do. Like I said, it is a required part of the class, required for your specialist credential and certificate. You will need to submit the video of you administering one of the required assessments for the week. So within the required assessments, you can select which one you would like to video. Now, in past, we've had to use TaskStream to submit the videos, which is an extra charge and an extra hassle to you guys, but thanks to Lindsay Rutherford, our amazing technology specialist, she has found a way that we can submit them on Titanium, and she is working on typing up directions for you as well as making a screencast on how to do that. So next week, your participation activity will be to post a sample video. So when you submit your first real video, after doing your second session with your student, you'll know exactly how to do that because of the participation activity next week. So good news, you don't have to pay money to subscribe to TaskStream. We will be able to use Titanium, and I'm really excited about that. You must submit the full assessment administration from start to finish, and there's also a rubric on Titanium as well. This is pretty straightforward. I'm just looking at how you are engaging the student. I'm looking at you as the teacher, as the agent. How prepared are you? Do you know what you're doing? And then lastly, I'm looking at the consistency of how you are implementing the assessment and administering it. Are you following the protocol set forth by the publishers of the assessment? So those are the 3 things I'm looking for on the video. It's pretty easy to get your 15 points on the video, I'm not going to lie, and I'm very excited you can submit them on Titanium now. All right, I'm going to stop here and then come back and explain the group presentation, which is the last big assignment I wanted to talk about, and then we will get going with the content for the week.